Welcome back, everyone. Michael here with Offshore Citizen. Today I'm going to talk about a tax haven that very few people talk about. I don't actually hear anybody talking about it. I will give credit to a client, Josh, for kind of drawing my attention to it more and putting some emphasis on it, causing us to go and do a bunch more research, etc. And so it'll be fun. It is an example of where you can potentially get a really good quality passport, tier 1 passport by pretty much across the board, and at the same time you can do that potentially with really good tax treatment. Now, I will caution, there's going to be a certain group of people who are going to say, this is trash, you don't want anything to deal with it, etc. We'll talk about that in a second, but I think it is going to be very fun to discuss because, again, other people aren't talking about it, and I think it's highly overlooked. And this is St Barts. So before we get started, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Thank you for subscribing. If you would like help with relocating abroad, getting residencies, citizenships, optimizing your global tax, etc., please reach out to us. You can book a call, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, link in the description below, or send a message to our websites, offshorecitizen.net and offshorecapitalist.com. Let's dive in. So I'll start off by saying that most of my French clients are probably going to be like, French passport, terrible, you don't want anything to do with France. Yes, it's true. France competes with Denmark every year to be the highest taxed country in the world. Sometimes they win. Lots of bureaucracy with respect to France, lots of downsides to business. However, there's a lot to love about France. South France is very beautiful. Paris is very beautiful. St Barts, the Caribbean, is very beautiful. And frankly, France is one of the places where you can most easily get a EU citizenship. By most easily, what I mean is the shortest amount of time residing there. So typically, a lot of places are like 10 years. The fast ones are 5 years. There's some ways, under certain circumstances, you can qualify within 2 years in France, which is insanely good. Maybe you won't do it. Maybe you will. I don't know. Maybe I'll do another video on that. But it's pretty great. Well, St Barts happens to be a very unique tax haven. It's a very unique tax haven because it is part of France. It is not like a lot of other places that are excluded. It's fully authorized, etc. And it is not immediately accessible in most situations. I think that's part of how it works. But on the other hand, you can potentially have zero tax there. So let's dive in quickly to what this is. So first of all, St Barts, small island in the Caribbean, yes, could definitely be hit by hurricanes. It's down kind of by British Virgin Islands and Anguilla, things like this. So it's farther north. It's not like way far south like Grenada where you kind of avoid the hurricane area. They can have some pretty bad hurricanes in that area, and so you have to be aware of this. There's about 10,000 people there officially. People argue about 15,000 for real. So pretty small. Probably not a place that you'd want to spend all year. Maybe a place that you would want to spend, a bunch of the year. Depends on your personal preferences. Definitely a lot of great weather for a lot of the year. So from that perspective, it's great. And how does this work? So if you move there and become resident, for the first 5 years, you pay tax as a normal French person. Okay, all right, not anything especially amazing. And if you set up a company there, for the first 5 years, it is taxed like a normal French company. After that, it's taxed zero, okay? Now, of course, you have all the normal management and control things and all the operation and substance things, meaning that if you are a foreigner and you buy a company in St. Barts or set up a company in St. Barts, etc., and you're running it from, let's say, the US, well, then you're still going to be taxable in the US. Or if you're in mainland France and you have operations there, you have an office there, you're still going to be taxed there. But if you have a St. Barts company and you're living in St. Barts, well, then this is quite good, because you can have zero tax. Now here's the interesting loophole. You can buy a company that's already been established for 5 years and take advantage of that zero tax at the company level from day one. And of course, if you withdraw that money and you lived there, like I said, for the first 5 years, you're going to get taxed. But after that 5 years, now you can qualify for this zero tax regime, which is pretty interesting. In addition to that, St. Barts is considered to be part of France, meaning that your time spent in St. Barts counts the same as time spent in France for qualifying for French citizenship. So potentially after 5 years, you could get French citizenship. On top of this, you don't have the same minimum stay requirements in St. Barts that you have in normal France. So there are a bunch of rules around, having your main home there and having your main source of income there, kind of like, it's sort of like a center of vital interest test. So it's not like you can just say, hey, listen, I'm not gonna have any connection to there, et cetera. No, you genuinely have to have the connection there, et cetera. But if you're willing to do that, and let's be honest, there are worse places that you could have yourself set up. It's a really interesting example of a place that you can potentially not have tax for ever, potentially. How would this work? Okay, let's just imagine. You move to St. Barths, you've already got some money. Okay, you've got some money. You're like, okay, I'm moving there with, I don't know, a couple $1 million. You move there and you buy a company. Okay, it's probably gonna cost you around $20,000 to buy one of these aged companies. Now you have some sort of business, and that business is earning money, and it's not taxable. Okay, so money stays in the company, not paying tax. So 5 years later, and you live there for part of the year, you genuinely live there, you genuinely have a home, you do all these things, and you work towards becoming a French citizen. You can get a French citizenship. Again, lots of bureaucracy, lots of paperwork. There's things with respect to language requirements, and it's not like it's just a walk in the park where they just hand you a citizenship. It's not like that. But that being said, it's a really good passport. Again, some French people will go and say, Michael, France, terrible, etc. They're not living in St. Barts, let's point that out. And like it or not, this is like a very tier 1 passport, right? It's Schengen, so you have access to that. It's EU, you have access to that. And it has access to most of the places that you would want to go. So it's a very top tier passport. This is a very interesting possibility for somebody who's willing to actually go and live there and spend time, right? If you're not willing to live there and spend time, obviously not the most ideal place, but I think a place that has been overlooked for people who A, want to get French citizenship without going and being crushed by the burdens of France, and B, people who are interested in optimizing tax while getting a very tier 1 passport. I mean, there's not that many places you can do this. You can kind of do it in New Zealand, their 4-year exemption. You can do it under the non-dom potentially in Ireland or UK. You could do, there's like a couple of these other situations where you could make it work. And there's, of course, some fast tracks where, if you marry somebody locally, et cetera, right, that can make some differences. But generally, there's a trade-off, right? You're paying in kind of the tax consequences while you're getting the passport. Here, you can potentially have the best of both worlds. So let me know what you think. Put it in the comments below. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you on the next video.